workshop on more pressing issues is probably the best use of our time. But we encourage you to use this map. We encourage you to spend some time with it, and we encourage you to share it. It's open to everybody within the community, and we'd love to get as much feedback on it as possible. Great, so now we're going to jump into the part of the workshop where you're going to actually give us some ideas. What we've done here is set up a live virtual survey, which is going to respond to some of the prompts that we put before you about the possibilities at Van Dyke Avenue. You've seen this slide already. This is the current composition of the corridor, and we recognize that it can be hard, given what you see there today and what's experienced there today, to imagine a dramatically different future here. But we want to try to stretch those brains and get some great ideas on the table today. Again, our goals here are to create a walkable, vibrant, economically successful, and progressive place that brings all different members of the community together and can create some really distinctive benefits to the Sterling Heights community. So think along those lines, and we hope that you can really get creative with us today. As part of our effort to understand the corridor and to think about the kind of transformation that can take place here, we took a look at some of the commercial centers in the larger region. So that includes Rochester Main Street, the Utica Town Center just to the north of our site, the forthcoming Warren Town Center. And one of our first takeaways was that Van Dyke Avenue compared to these centers is very big. It's a 1.3 mile long stretch, so what we need to start doing is thinking about it in terms of sub-districts. What are the various components of this? About a month ago, we had the chance to visit, and we walked the corridor, and understanding the composition from a first-hand perspective, we were able to come up with these kind of loose lines of the different sub-districts that might exist within Van Dyke. So we've got the core right at the middle. This is where the planning documents of the past, as well as kind of the natural confluence of factors, suggest that some real great dense energy can happen here. We've got the Southern Industrial Site, which is very much in operation and economically successful, so likely to stay kind of in its current configuration and use for the foreseeable future. And we've got North Utica, which is this interesting mix of small-scale commercial and industrial uses. And then the northernmost segment, which is tucked right up against the park and has some great opportunities there, as well as forthcoming developments, which we're all very excited about. So for the survey, we're going to ask your feedback and thoughts relative to 4 distinct areas. The first is the streetscape. So what's happening with the street? We are going to focus on the pedestrian experience of that street, as well as the biking and other means of micromobility. Public space, we'd love to hear your thoughts on where people can gather in the future and what kinds of spaces you'd like to see. District experience, why are you going to come to this district in the future, and what kind of development can take shape here and be successful? And then the identity. What is the future identity of Van Dyke Avenue? What is the brand of this place? What will it sell to the larger region, to Sterling Heights, as its distinctive qualities? So we're going to use a virtual survey software here called Menti. We've chosen this one because it is as simple as possible, and we encourage you all to participate by going to www.menti.com on your computer or tablet or smartphone and enter this code when you're prompted to. We're going to ask you a series of questions based on some visuals that we present, and this will give you an opportunity to plug in your input. So I'll just leave this on the screen for a minute, and then we'll allow folks enough time to get there. You should see this screen on Menti once you log in with this code. I'll also type this into the chat just in case you need it, so we can move along with our slides here. And if you're having any issues with this software, my colleague Fernando Turpin, who you can find in the chat function, will be happy to assist you on an individual basis if you're running into any technical issues. So feel free to message him. Okay, can I get some nods if folks are where they should be? Excellent. Okay, let's move right along. So we're going to start with a survey that just helps us orient to the functionality of this tool. What is your favorite color? So here you can see the live functions of this. Unfortunately, the colors of the bars don't match the colors of the circles, but hopefully if you voted, that won't matter. Well, we got a lot of fans of blue here. This probably reflects humanity at large. Great. So here you can see basically how this survey function is going to work. It helps you input your own perspectives and also see the perspectives of everybody else. Lots of love for blue, not much for yellow. All right, good to know. Let's move right along. Sorry if you didn't have a chance to vote on this one, but we're going to get to some better stuff. So we wanted to focus first on the streetscape. As we discussed with you a bit ago, there's some significant opportunity to reuse these spaces between existing development and the right-of-way, including perhaps even some of the travel lanes, if that ends up being the right solution. And we want to know, how can we recapture this space and use it effectively in the future? So we've taken a look at several examples of where this has been done successfully and where we can grab inspiration from places that people love. So this is an array of projects that Design Workshop has actually worked on. And these are just some of the options for how we can use that right-of-way between the street and development effectively. So you can do everything from spill-out space, where restaurants open up onto the outside. You can have varying degrees of formal spaces here. You can do plazas and gathering spaces. This is a plaza that our team, Design Workshop, recently completed in Wheaton, Illinois, where they had very similar goals of creating better street life, better pedestrian experience, and there's some features there that are really exciting. Real estate development is a real opportunity here. We love to see in those urban districts that are walkable and accommodating of lots of different people and uses, buildings that front right up against the street and bring a certain level of density that creates vibrancy. Bike lanes and amenities. We've already heard from the community that bike infrastructure is something they want. Perhaps there's opportunities here for that. And then green streets, where there is opportunity for performative infrastructure and things that could contribute to the sustainability of the site. So our first question is relative to the road diet idea. We're curious to know, and again, this is early in the process, what are your thoughts about the potential for a road diet where we shrink the travel lanes down by either 1, 2, or whatever's plausible? And here you should be able to select a spot on the map or on a spectrum. Are we having some trouble with this one?
I don't see the lines. I just see the question and then submit.
Huh.
Same for me.
All right, sorry about that, everyone.
Same for me as well.
All right. Sorry about that, folks. We're just going to have to move on from that one. I'm not sure what the issue may have been, but we've got another one right at the back end here. We'd love to hear what you think about the options we just discussed in terms of what can be done in the right-of-way. What are your thoughts about what's appropriate for repurposing sections of this right-of-way? And here you can select as many as you'd like. We'll give about 20 seconds for each of these questions so we can be efficient with our time. This is great to see. Ten seconds left. Okay. Great. Interesting mix of things here. I'm glad to see that folks are in support of these ideas, and we don't have any contrarians. All right. Thank you. So we also want to talk about public space. There are opportunities here to create some really beloved public spaces within Van Dyke Avenue and create a sense of community as a result. So the first question we want to ask you about is parks. There are a variety of different kinds of parks, and understanding the needs of the city and the community around the area is important. The first being community park. This is a large kind of central gathering space where you have a variety of different kinds of park programming. You could have some kind of sculptural interventions, but really a large central gathering space. Then there are opportunities for pocket parks. These are typically much smaller, more flexible, more adaptable spaces that can be reconfigured and changed over time. Or does Van Dyke Avenue need or could benefit from recreational facilities, whether those be basketball courts all the way to baseball diamonds, football fields, whatever? Or is there an opportunity here for more natural garden-like spaces that provide some respite from the development side of things? We also want to take into consideration the connections to the Clinton River and the Greenway. So thinking about those strategically is also important when we talk about parks and open space. So of those options or any others you can think of, what do you think is needed in Van Dyke Avenue? What scale of park space or what kind would be useful here? And if you have thoughts on the other, feel free to type those into the chat box. We'll be recording these comments and we can throw that in with our analysis of what you've told us. Okay, great. So we've got some interesting ideas here for what kinds of park spaces are needed. Interesting to see that natural parks and gardens have jumped to the top. Sounds like there's a need for that in the area. In addition to parks, we want to think about destination public spaces. What outside of just park and kind of landscape spaces can exist here and be successful? What might bring people to Van Dyke Avenue? We heard that all-season spaces are interesting to folks from the master land use plan, but there's also opportunities in vibrant urban districts for things like tactile interactive spaces. So here's a plaza with some movable swings. There are also lots of kinds of interesting art interventions that can involve interaction with them. Any thoughts you have there would be interesting for us to hear. There's also flexible event spaces. Can we create either streets or plazas where there are opportunities to host events on weekends or festivals during holidays? And then in consideration the fact that not every food business is going to be able to provide a beautiful and robust outdoor seating environment, maybe there are opportunities to create shared outdoor dining plazas where multiple restaurants and different businesses can front onto it and provide something like an outdoor food court, more or less. So we'd be interested to hear your thoughts along those lines. What do you think is appropriate of these options or any others you can think of for Van Dyke? And again, if you have any thoughts that fit into the other category and you get some specific ideas, we would love to hear those in the chat box. Okay, great. So it seems like there's a lot of interest in this outdoor shared dining plaza. All right, just a couple seconds for any last thoughts. Okay, I see someone typed in food truck park. That's a great idea. Love that. Okay, so now we're on to another scale bar question. Let's see if this one can work for us. Unfortunately, it looks like it doesn't. We can engage in this conversation in the discussion thereafter. Sorry about this. I'm not sure why that's not working. Okay, so beyond streetscapes and public spaces, we want to talk about the experience of the district from the perspective of the kind of development that might take shape here. Specifically retail, as that's going to be a big component of what will draw people to the district. So thinking about what kind of development and experiences are right here, what do you see as the potential future character of Van Dyke Avenue? Is it more of a dining and nightlife destination? Is it the kind of place where destination retail comes? So these are things like, in this case, a big REI store, but also could be the new kind of outdoor mall idea of lifestyle centers, as they're called. Is it more of a Main Street environment with more fine-grained retail and other kinds of businesses? Or is it more of a local maker kind of funky vibe where you get things like breweries and maker spaces? And keep in mind that there's a lot of land within this district and a lot of different kind of environments. So it could be many of these. And once again, you've got the option to tell us you'd like to see a lot. But before we jump into rating those options, we're curious about when you visit Van Dyke Avenue today, what brings you there? We've put a few different options here. Maybe you live nearby, maybe, and you'll just have to click that button at the top of your thing that says move on to the presenter slides. Sorry about that. Interesting. Great. So we're going to give this about 10 more seconds. And if you're putting none of these or other, again, please feel free to tell us what it is that brings you here. Okay, great. So an interesting mix of reasons. We've got a lot of people who live nearby. So these are kind of natural constituents to the corridor. Shopping and automotive services tend to be big uses. Now, thinking back to those scenarios we were just taking a look at, we'd love to hear what you think is appropriate for the future of the corridor. What might this be known for in the future? You guys voting for none of these or other, it's just tantalizing to guess what you get in mind. So please feel free to submit some comments and steer us in the right direction. We'll give just a few more seconds of this if folks have last thoughts. Okay, thank you. Interesting to see such strong interest in this kind of funky local maker vibe. Fits in well with the industrial character of the area. Interesting to see. There's a lot of potential there. Thank you for your contribution. Now we want to ask a question about where you go to undertake certain activities, to participate in activities like dining, shopping, entertainment. If you're going to spend an evening doing this or a weekend day, where do you do it? Is it mostly in Sterling Heights? Is it in communities right around the city? Is it communities in the larger region, kind of several miles out? Or is it outside of the county and region entirely? Interesting to see. So about a quarter of you do this in Sterling Heights, or to some extent, and then a lot of folks doing it outside the region. So we're asking this question to gain a sense of where are there opportunities to capture some of that energy and that leakage, as Brooks would call it, for Sterling Heights and try to recapture some of those dollars. Part of our mission is to create a distinct and unique experience in Van Dyke Avenue, and finding the right things that meet these needs will be critical. Great, so moving on. In terms of the experience of the district, we started off with trying to understand the vibe overall. What is it that people will ultimately come here for? Now we want to get a sense of what your priorities and thoughts are with regard to the type of development that might take place here. There's a lot of different options for reconfiguration and redevelopment in a place like Van Dyke Avenue, depending, of course, on market conditions and what kind of investments people want to make. But there's a range of types that are built into that conversation. You can go something sort of mid to high density, mixed use, where you've got either offices or residential products of multifamily varieties above retail, which is certainly successful in a lot of places, and people tend to like it. Or does the district need more civic facilities, things like libraries, museums, and whatever else may serve the community? Townhouses are a great kind of mid-density option for places like Sterling Heights and Van Dyke Avenue. Can provide housing to a variety of different demographic sectors. Or are more mid-density single-use projects more likely to take shape here, whether it be residential development or office in the long term? So which of these do you think is the best fit in terms of development type for Van Dyke Avenue? Okay, an interesting input there. A lot of support for more mixed use kinds of developments with more of an urban character. It's interesting to see. A lot of support for townhouses. Great, thank you. Now, thinking specifically about civic facilities, we're wondering what you think that the city needs or Van Dyke Avenue in particular could benefit from. So this is a little bit different question format. You're invited to type in your answers. You can submit 1 up to 5, I think, different answers. So feel free to type some ideas in. All right, great ideas here. Let's give it another 10 seconds. We're running a little tight on time. Story of my life. This is some terrific feedback, though. Grocery store, love to see that. I know that we did have one in the corridor at one point that has since transitioned to a new use. All right, type in those last thoughts and hit submit. And in 3, 2, 1, we are on our way. Thank you for those great ideas. Of course, these are all being recorded. Okay, and then our final topic tonight, we want to talk about identity. We want to talk about the branding of this district and what it ultimately will be known for and what kind of interventions can take shape here. So we're taking a look at a variety of different factors here, things like signature public features. Here you see a fireplace in the seating area that's branded with the town's logo and becomes a gathering place for people and a real destination. There's also things available like branded signage. You've probably seen this around in cities before. These are real great Instagrammable moments. These are places where people can immediately recognize where they are and share that with the world. Things like sculptural gateways. So at those places where gateways are appropriate, can we do something that that really distinguishes Van Dyke Avenue from the rest of the city? And then, of course, things like locally driven public art. We know that there's some momentum already to get some murals on the site, and we'd love to see more of that in different kinds of art. So what are your thoughts there? And just before we get into the survey, we wanted to show you what we're thinking about when we talk about gateways. So here you can see a couple of circles. The bigger ones are areas where during our site visit, we thought it may be appropriate to install some gateways to announce that you've arrived at Van Dyke Avenue in the new district. And then the smaller solid circles are maybe minor locations where that could happen. And we're taking a close look at the edges of these different sub-districts as well as the edge of the larger project boundary. But it gives you a sense of arrival when you get to Van Dyke Avenue. And take a look at those arrows as well. Those are approach arrows in terms of how you access the corridor, which we're going to ask you a question about. So here's that map again. When you visit Van Dyke Avenue, how do you get here? That map should still be visible on your screen. Interesting. So far, 5 out of the 6 kind of major gateways are getting a lot of love. Give that about 10 seconds. Okay, so looks like a plurality of people are coming from the south. That's to be expected, I think. Lots of people coming from the north and from the east as well, from the Clinton River Greenway. Interesting. Or more likely through it. Not a ton of traffic coming from the west, where those industrial areas are, or from the southeast, going north on Utica. And looks like not a lot of people at all are coming from the northwest. Maybe those Utica residents are coming that way. Okay, thanks for your input. Here's another open question. We'd love to hear just one positive word or term that you can use to describe the character of sorry, that's some old language in there. It should just be the Van Dyke Avenue corridor. Great. Let's give this about 10 more seconds. Great, we're seeing some really interesting words here. I love accessible, open, opportunity, underutilized, unlimited, excellent, multicultural, perfect. Vintage and gritty are really interesting. There's some good stuff to work off of there. Thank you for your input on this one. And in 3, 2, 1, we are moving right along. Now let's hear one negative word that you associate with Van Dyke Avenue. What is it that this court struggles with, in your opinion, or that you've had a bad experience with, perhaps? All right, we're seeing a lot of old, dated, outdated, debilitated, tired. Seems to be some consensus here. Let's give it 10 more seconds. Three, 2, 1. Thank you for your contributions. This is great. Not that you describe it in these ways, but that we're getting this feedback. Thanks. Okay, so this one should work just fine. We're interested to hear your thoughts on the direction that the brand and identity material should take as the corridor evolves. What seems appropriate to you on these spectrums? And you should be able to move the dots from left to right, depending on which vibe feels more right. Is it more of a historic kind of place, or should it lean towards contemporary and more modern? Does it have a rustic vibe that may align with those kind of natural spaces and inclinations that people had for it, or should it be clean and sharp, new? Is it more of a traditional place, like a more traditional downtown Main Street perhaps, or is it something that's kind of flexible and fun? I'm getting a note that this doesn't look great on the mobile phone. Apologies for that, but hopefully still legible. Okay, interesting. So there's a lot of opinions here. Good to see, but it seems like things are leaning much more on the side of modern, embracing the future. Not to read too much into it or interpret it too much. Let's give you about 5 more seconds on this. Okay. Great. Our environmental graphic designers and the team of people who are going to be working on the brand are going to love to hear what you have to say here. I think just 2 more questions, and then sorry we're running a bit over time, but we'll stay around to answer any questions that you may have for our team. Second to last question: how should Van Dyke Avenue or Sterling Heights more largely be celebrated in the district's branding and identity? What should be included within that brand package and the way that we present the district? What is it about its specific location or the city itself that gives us some potential there? New place to move to, new place to eat, artistic, multicultural, representing all cultures of the city, murals, signage, sculpture. This certainly sounds like a very exciting place in the future. Diversity, honor our industrial history. This is great. Great feedback. Uniqueness, cultural destination, walkability from one place to another. All right, let's give this about 10 more seconds. An area for all to come. And 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you for these wonderful ideas. And then our final question. We want you, instead of looking ahead to the future, we want you to jump ahead to the future and look back. What is it that, how do you describe Van Dyke Avenue when we're 20 years into the future and this master plan has been a wonderful success? We've implemented most of the vision, created all these great spaces in development. How do you describe the Van Dyke Avenue district? How do you tell people about it? What do you say you go here for or to do? Excellent. Local arts, active and energized. We've got a family destination, terrific. See how stuff is made, that's cool. Gathering site for all interests, interactive and tactile. Food and beverage, great shopping, mixed use housing and outdoor attractions, love it. Vibrant, must visit, that's fantastic. If you're describing it that way in 20 years, that is a terrific success, I would say. Supportive of small businesses, different, that's great. Okay, let's give it 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thanks, everybody. These are great ideas. So that is the end of our survey portion, and as well as the workshop more largely. We want to thank you a lot for your participation, and I'm going to hand over the last bits of our discussion to Manisha.
Thank you all for patiently listening to us today and participating all in these wonderful surveys. And I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to visit the opportunity mapping site and tell us how you would like to shape the future in physical terms for the Van Dyke Avenue corridor. This will be a tremendous help for the design team to present for the next time ideas that are really based on your will and, more importantly, the needs of your community. We will collate, synthesize all this information, and we will be back. We will be coming back to you at the next community workshop with some preliminary ideas. And the recordings of today's meetings would be available online on the webpage of Van Dyke Avenue. And also, please circulate this information to your friends and neighbors. The surveys will also be open